First things first, I was gonna start off this video with a funny little skit about how I got like 100 comments on my last video about how I apparently have been pronouncing Rillaboom wrong the past 3 years, and it's actually Rillaboom. But that funny little detail pales in comparison to how insane the support on my last video was. Soon after I posted the starter redesign video, it got over 100,000 views in the first week and a half since it's been up, which is, as of this moment, my most viewed video of all time. So thank you all so much for the support on the last video, and just a few hundred shy of 5,000 subscribers. The rate at which this community is growing just blows my mind, and your seemingly never-ending support lets me do what I do, which in this case is draw a map for my hypothetical Pokemon narrative, Pokémon Legends Kyurem. For this episode, I set out to make a map, but in doing so, I fleshed out basically the entire story for Legends Kyurem. So after I explain the thought processes that went into making the map, I will be telling the story as I draw the map in this video. A question that I asked you all last time is, like how the ancient Sinnohans of Legends Arceus called Sinnoh Hisui, what should my ancient name for Unova be? I read a really clever idea to use the real-life beta name for Unova, that being Alios, as an ancient name that reflects the real-life transformation between the names. I loved that idea. So in this scenario, the humans native to the Unova region will call the land Alios. Creating a map for ancient Unova, or in this case Alios, would be a much different creative process when compared to the maps that I've done for my past Pokemon regions. Unlike these, I already have a pretty rigid base in the quote modern day Unova region to go off from. Not only that, the art style already established by Legends Arceus is a big departure from the main series' more stylized satellite image style of map. Instead, this map was inspired by the watercolor art style popular in Meiji-era Japan. Although, in retrospect, I could have gone a completely different way and designed the map with an art style that was inspired by colonial-era maps. I went with the watercolor idea to add a level of consistency between the two maps. Now, exactly how the Pokemon Company went about remodeling Sinnoh into ancient Hisui is unclear, as the Pokemon Company tends to be a bit hush-hush with their behind-the-scenes processes. That being said, looking at how the Hisui region is structured would probably help in starting to redesign Unova. It appears that for gameplay purposes, the Pokemon Company opted to not go full open world, which honestly isn't that big of a deal in my opinion if you've ever played the game. Not including Jubilife Village, which appears to take up most of the land between Jubilife and Canalave in the modern day and is technically its own area. The starting areas between Twinleaf Town, Lake Verity, and Oreburgh City make up the open space that is called the Obsidian Fieldlands. Mount Coronet and the surrounding features appear to make up the aptly named Coronet Highlands. The Crimson Mirelands are made up of Hearthome, Lake Valor, and the Pastoria Marsh sections, while the Cobalt Coastline appears to be what will eventually become Sunny Shore City, Route 223, and Stark Mountain. The final area, the Alabaster Icelands, is just everything around and south of Snowpoint City. So knowing that they divided the map up into these sections with unique biome characteristics helped me in the way that I divided up Unova. Although it appears that the Pokemon Company left out big sections of Sinnoh for Hisui, like the areas around Eterna City and Veilstone City, I don't have to worry about streamlining everything down to fit into a well-balanced game, so I opted to include all the areas of Unova, or at least the vast majority of them. Instead of using 6 areas, I used 9, or 11 if you include the towns that would be on their own. I'll get into explaining the landmarks when I draw up the map but for now I will go over the broad strokes by explaining what would be included in these 9 or so areas. Area 1, or the Castelia Fieldlands, makes up what in the modern day becomes Castelia City and Route 4. Instead of being an arid desert, it is a lush fieldland marked with patches of forests. There is a story reason that it becomes a desert later in the future. Area 2 is the Lost Lorn Forest, and it makes up a good chunk of the middle peninsula of Unova, being the Desert Resort, Relic Castle, Route 5 and 16, Nimbasa City, and the Interlink, and of course, Lost Lorn Forest. Area 3 would be unlocked with the building of the Sky Arrow Bridge, and this third area is known as Pinwheel Forest, but now encompasses all of early game Unova, stretching between Novema and Nacrian City. Area 4 is called the Undella Wetlands, and it encompasses everything between the Black City White Forest area and Undella Town. Area 5 is the Undella Bay, and it is everything surrounding the Marine Tube and Abyssal Ruins. Area 6 would be another one of these surfing zones that would actually be unlocked around the same time you unlock Area 5, and it would be called Liberty Bay, basically the equivalent of Route 17 and 18. Area 7 is the Lacanosa Fieldlands, which would be a rugged, grassy, but semi-arid area around modern-day Lacanosa City, which in my version is a little village without the walls of its modern-day counterpart. Area 8, the Isurus Tundra, sports an ice sheet on the Opelucid side of the river, and a marsh that stands in for the Isurus Moor on the Isurus City part of the side of the river. And it is everything between Village Bridge and Twist Mountain. Area 9 is the Mistralton Lowlands, and it's everything Twist Mountain south, until you hit the lake that can be seen from the outlook at Aspiratia City. Area 10 and 11 are Castelia City, or in this case Castelia Village, and Anvil Town, respectively. They would, of course, play very different roles in the story when compared to their modern counterparts. Castelia would be the base camp village that you would start off from, and Anvil Town would be the secluded capital of the native Aleosians. I'm just going to call the natives Aleosians from now on. As I play the speed art for this map, I'll run through the story as you would discover the individual areas along the way. There are 3 acts or arcs to the story, and I'll outline when each one starts and ends. The story doesn't start out in Unova, but rather in a far-off Galar region, where you and your rival, the ancestor to the Black and White 2 rival Hugh, would leave home for an expedition to a new region and choose your starter Pokemon. A year later, you arrive in Castelia Village, a small, growing port town at the edge of the unknown. In this town, you and your rival join an expedition group as representatives of your respected corps, which I talked about last time you would choose when you choose your starter. The bulk of Act 1's quote-unquote gameplay would consist of you and your exploration crew exploring the early areas of the game, guided by the ancestor of Professor Juniper as the leader of the group, until you uncover the Lost Lorn Temple in Area 2, a bustling religious center of the native Aleosians. The leader of the Aleosians allows for your traveling company to rest, but requires that you leave this land, as the Aleosians are an isolationist culture and have had bad experiences encountering other civilizations in the past and wish to be left alone. You also learn during your rest the backstory behind the Interlink at the center of the region. It is the result of a crater that fell 100 years ago, and out of that crater was birthed the Pokemon Victini, a bringer of luck. The religious seers of the Aleosians foretell of a crater that will strike in the future that will bring forth destruction and death. This is the legend of the beast that they call a Kyurem. After you rest, your group continues to express interest in opening relationships between the 2 civilizations. You are set out a task by the leader of the Aleosians. In order to be considered worthy enough to risk opening his people up to the outside world again, the leader requires that you defeat each of his 8 trials in the form of 4 totem Pokemon and 4 trial captains. This then becomes the big challenge of Act 1 as you explore the region taking down each of the trials. Although I don't have them all fleshed out fully, I'll share with you what I've got so far. The totem Pokemon will all have types that add up to all of Kyurem's types, and so they will be Fire, Electric, Ice, and Dragon. And the human trial captains will be the Ghost Captain, found in the temple on the burial site, which will one day become the haunted and abandoned Dream Yard, the Water Captain, who will be in the not yet submerged Abyssal Temple, the Flying Captain that will be found in the Celestial Tower, and the Dragon Captain that will be found in the Dragon Spiral Tower. Yes, I know the Dragon type totem and trials overlap types, but I'll allow it as you'll find that the Alliosians have a particular reverence for the Dragon type, as can be seen in many aspects of their culture. Their main religion centers around people chosen to become dragon tamers, and these people are found worthy by beating these 8 trials. These people are the ancestors of Iris and Drayden. It is said in their culture that a true dragon tamer can only come around once in a generation. In the beginning of Act 2, after having defeated all of the trials, you and your traveling companions are given the honor of being flown to the secluded capital in the far-off wilderness of the region, the Village of Dragons, the stand-in for Anvil Town, if you remember. Just before you can be awarded the honor of being an official representative of this isolationist nation, a meteor streaks through the sky and crashes to the ground just north of the Undella Bay, forming, you guessed it, the Giant Chasm. Your group arrives first and finds the meteor transformed into Kyurem's 100% form, and Act 2 of the story centers around your group fighting against the catastrophes that Kyurem causes as he travels across the region. And eventually, you and your rival capture this Pokemon together. You jointly hold the power of the dragon, and as such wield together near ultimate power. At the beginning of the final act of the story, which takes the biggest inspiration from the Black and White game's lore, the leader of the Alliosians decides to withdraw his gesture of opening his nation to the outside world temporarily, while his people recover from the environmental disasters of Kyurem's reign. You of course understand, but you and your rival, who have sort of at this point in the story become the leaders of your traveling group, are of course disappointed, but you take the king's word and wait until he is ready. Your rival is not so patient, and explains to you that you two should just use the ultimate power of the dragon to basically force the king to open relations between Galar and the Alliosians, as he knows that this relationship will benefit both sides. Although you agree that opening a relationship between the two nations will be a net positive, you don't agree that you should do it by force. This is the rift between you and your rival that causes the dragon to split into 3. The empty Kyurem husk returns to the Giant Chasm, while you take either Zekrom or Reshiram. Depending on your choice, your rival will take the opposite dragon. Your rival takes his dragon and goes village to village, demanding the townspeople of each town submit to him as the king so that he could lead them the quote-unquote right way. The final mission concludes in an ultimate battle in the Castelia Fieldlands between you and your rival, with both of your respective dragons. This battle turns the once lush Fieldlands into a barren, scorching desert. Unlike Pokemon games of the past, this story has a sad ending. Your rival, disillusioned but now powerless to do anything against you, abandons you, walking out into the desert never to be seen from again. And the Alliosians, after having experienced the horrors from Kyurem and your rival, they have largely abandoned their towns, with the people of Lacunosa being some of the only remaining Alliosians and having built up a wall around their town to defend from Kyurem. The rest of the locations are left completely abandoned by the Alliosians, who, as you soon discover, have left the region entirely, never to be contacted by the people from Galar again. The Lost Lorn Temple now sits out in the middle of the desert and slowly is covered in sands, becoming the relic castle. And the sea temple sinks beneath the waves, becoming the abyssal ruins. All this while the other structures slowly wither away. This story, passed down from generations, changed over time, and eventually became the stories that is told in the Pokemon Black and White games of the two brother kings that championed truth and ideals respectively, and split Zekrom and Reshiram apart through a war. If you really pay attention, the truth and ideals aspect is preserved in my telling of the story. Although your rival is definitely wrong, he champions ideals, as ideally he could lead the Aliosians to open communications, and it probably would be beneficial to both civilizations, as they're both about as technologically advanced as each other. Each would find it challenging to take advantage over the other. However, you, the player character, is the champion of truth, as the truth is, no matter how good the intentions of your rival were, that line of thought would only destine him to rule the Aliosians with an iron fist, and therefore the people would suffer. So those are the broad strokes of the story of the Alios, or ancient Unova region, that will be told in my hypothetical Pokémon Legends Kyurem game. What do you think? Yeah, it's a story that's very different from Legends Arceus, and I don't think this story would be one that the Pokemon Company would ever tell, as it has themes of colonialism and oppression that are admittedly a bit complex for Pokemon. But I think my story, if only a fan creation, adds an interesting aspect to the Unova region. And of course, the most important part, what did you think of my map? I know I kind of got carried away in telling the story, and it kind of became a bit of an afterthought towards the end. But I think it's a good representation of not only the setting where my story will take place in, but also a good representation of the Hisuian art style in the Unova map. In the next episode, I think I'm going to create a few Pokemon around the idea of the Castelia grasslands having not yet become a desert in the main part of the story, and exploring the different designs that would emerge in the Pokemon that lived there in the modern day and what they looked like before their home became a desert. So I hope you're all excited for that. For now, that will be all. I really do want to know what you think about my story in the comments below. But until next time, I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you liked it, then leave a like. And if you want to see more like it, then subscribe. And turn on the bell to get notified when I upload next.